The theme of this month's session is teaching in large group settings. And the first question we might ask ourselves is, what is a large enrollment course? Is it 50 students? Is it 100? Is it 200? Is it 1,000? And I think the great answer to that question is, if you think it's a large enrollment course, it probably is. It's a very subjective number. There's no set target as to what large is, but it would definitely be more than one student, obviously. When we think of large enrollment classes, we're often thinking about those large lecture hall situations where we're in front of quite a few different students in a university setting, or in an online setting as well. So enrollment in online courses is also equally can be considered large as well. I feel that when you're in a large setting, there's a lot of pressure on the instructor side to feel as if you have to be a performer. So the image I have here is of a professor from the United States who created an entire persona around teaching large group courses. He created a set of comic books around the topics he was teaching in world history. And you can see at the bottom there his tagline: "One man, one decade, 25,000 students." And I feel like that pressure can be a lot on us as instructors who are traditionally maybe in front of a room. And through the session today, hopefully I can help relieve some of those anxieties and stereotypes to reduce some of that pressure of performing in terms of being in front of that class to create engagement. There's multiple ways that we can do that. And there's quite a bit of scholarship supporting this as well. In the links to the slides that you have there, all of these hyperlinks are linked out to the resources that I'm sharing. And there's a recent article here by Hunt et al. About sort of a large scale study of what we can do. And it boils down to what you see on the right-hand side here: encouraging active student engagement, reducing students' feelings of anonymity, and providing individualized feedback. And in a minute, we'll talk about what that type of feedback means, because I know in large group settings, that's another piece, another component that is extraordinarily stressful, and that it feels as if we might have to give 1,000 pieces of feedback to 1,000 students, that it's all highly specialized, but there's different ways. And we'll take a look at some assessment strategies as well. For those of you joining that are in an online space or teaching online, you may be familiar with the community of inquiry model. And this is a model of helping to enhance the educational experience by increasing social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence in that online space. And the social presence in particular is really important in both online and offline settings of bringing the instructor into a situation and being present in that. And one way that that can be mediated is by doing what I'm doing now, video-based work. And we'll talk about some specific strategies for that in a moment as well. And finally, I just wanted to share a piece of discipline-specific scholarship. I know we've got people from all over the university, and actually, while we have a minute, we'd like to get to know who you all are as well. So while I'm explaining this piece, if you don't mind popping in your discipline and where you're coming from into the chat, that would be fantastic, so we can sort of get to know who's on the other side of the screen here. So this particular piece of scholarship comes from architecture, and it's the scholars here have developed this model and sort of organization of higher level, middle level, and lower level thinking type tasks and map them on to exercises that can be done. And again, it's a combination of blended and online experiences where there's some quizzing and online contests and things like that that complete or that promote this sort of engagement at different levels. And while this article is specific to the discipline of architecture, I found a lot of the activities that they have outlined in the article helpful across the board. So that's another resource that might be of interest. So let's talk for a couple minutes here about assessment and feedback strategies. There are two key things that we'd like to share here around managing expectations for feedback for yourself and for the students, and providing clear pathways for communications. These are two key things, two key components for strategizing when you're working with large groups of students. When it comes to feedback, there's a lot that's often unsaid or just expected, that if, say, you submit a paper, you expect a certain type of feedback, and you might expect as an instructor to give a certain type of feedback, but the expectations might not be the same on either end. So the more clear that we can be on the type of feedback that we want to give, or asking to students what type of feedback they need on assignments, really helps break down those barriers and frustrations often around feedback, and can help set things on a more clear path for the semester. As you hopefully know, there's an approved set of UCD assessment strategies. Those of you that are on the instructor or module coordinator end should be familiar with this, and we really want to emphasize and share that group and class feedback, automated feedback, these strategies are approved assessment strategies and can really help in situations where an assessment workload is very high in those large scale classes. It might be really, really difficult to give individual 10-page feedback on essays and things that are coming in, but you can be iterative with assignments and maybe use things like peer review, self-assessment, automated feedback, group feedback before it gets to a round of maybe one instructor to student feedback. Or those can be the assessment strategies, just full stop. It doesn't always have to be individual feedback individually to students post an assessment. Another thing that hopefully you can find helpful here is the National Framework for Assessment, which was developed by Geraldine O'Neill and colleagues at the National Forum, and it's a tremendously powerful way of looking at assessment in three ways: assessment of learning, which is what we might think of as high stakes examinations, project essays, things that are demonstrating learning. And then we have assessment for learning, where we might be doing what would be called lower stakes MCQs or quizzes, dialogue, feed forward type work to see is learning happening in a process. And another one that I also think is really, really helpful in large group settings is assessment as learning, that the act of assessing itself can be and is an act of assessment. And this would be students self-reviewing or peer reviewing, judging their work based upon rubrics and criteria, or even coming up with their own shared assessment criteria. And you can see in this graphic here on the left, it sort of runs a spectrum from the teacher being the responsible or head decision maker to the student being in sort of the seat as the driver of assessment. And these are really, really powerful techniques that can be used in large settings. So digging into that a bit more in terms of strategies, Leveraging quizzes and online environments is a great way to sort of take advantage of the automation that's possible within a learning management system to quickly get a snapshot of where people are in terms of a topic. Utilizing rubrics is another great way to help with the assessment load. And that links here again out to our teaching and learning website, where we have some resources there for you for creating rubrics, some sample rubrics out there. Templates and worksheets are also really helpful ways of taking things that, sometimes you might be frustrated as an instructor if you're getting a piece of writing or writing back that isn't sort of along the lines of what you had imagined. If you provide a template and a worksheet where students can sort of work two areas and then use that to build off of, that's a way of streamlining things on your end. And then we also mentioned earlier peer review. UCD has a tool called Peer Scholar, which is fantastic. It's integrated. It integrates into Brightspace as well. And it's a tool where students can upload writing. You can match them with groups or individuals or duos to do peer review and writing. Again, a really, really helpful tool for helping to manage the workload. Another thing that we always talk about in large group settings, and one of the questions we get often, is how do we engage and how do we build our own presence in these environments? I'll run through a couple of quick examples, but I strongly want to encourage those that are here in person to pop some ideas in chat, and we'll open up the microphone in a few short minutes here when we move into the collaborative piece. One idea is to create a pre-class survey. This helps set expectations for you. You could ask about feedback preferences or expectations around that. Ask for types of engagement. This is also a great tool for universal design and differentiating learning. You can ask and get an idea about where students are in terms of where they're coming to you and to the class, your module in particular. You can build mechanisms for presence, whether you're holding office hours, making those visible either online or offline, and strategizing communication flows. So using things like Google Forms, especially when you're dealing with lots and lots of students, can be really helpful from the instructor side. So it might not just be open office hours and you'll be sort of caught off guard with the question. You can ask people to pre-populate questions, and that helps sort of facilitate the communication. You can have a running group frequently asked questions page in your course. We all know, those of us who've been teaching for a long time, when we get questions, often it's not just one student that will have a question. We either maybe have to clarify something or redo a direction. And if you have those open in a group frequently asked questions page or a discussion forum, that can also help with managing all of the streams of communication. And sometimes if that were done not just on a page, but say on a discussion forum, students can help answer each other's questions as well. Video is a really, really great way to build presence in online modules. And in addition to those that are face-to-face, what you could do after a session is a quick recap of what happened, reiterating key points, pointing that things out, posting that in Brightspace, and that continues that engagement and instructor presence throughout the entire module. Another idea is something called flipped discussions. We might have heard of the flipped classroom before, but this is even at a more minute level where instead of having students discuss directly back and forth in discussion forums, you can have them post, say, questions only, and then use that in class as a way to mediate discussion and conversation. So it gives the students a bit of time to think and to post, And then that gives you as an instructor a bit of time as well to structure a lecture. If this is a face-to-face in class lecture, it gives you time to structure that and to sort of anticipate questions ahead of time rather than being on the spot. This is another thing that's great when it comes to universal design for learning. It gives a chance for everyone to participate in, and maybe those that might not be comfortable on the spot speaking. And the last one strategy I'll share is another one pointing back to our website here. We've got a whole list of great showcase activities. One of those that's targeted for large group courses is the 1-minute paper. And very briefly, this approach takes very large lecture. You prompt the students with a question to write a paper in 1 minute, and then that paper is shared with another student. They review, read, collaborate, and chat. And this really helps with that active learning, teasing out understandings, and kind of a really quick way to get students engaged and also to give you a gauge as an instructor. And that can be followed by additional sharing of papers or more open group discussions. So that was a quick, just over 15-minute run through of things while we're still recording here. We just want to make sure to let everyone know the next session, the next Teaching Toolkit Thursday, on the third Thursday of October, we'll be giving effective feedback, and that's on the 19th of October, and the link to sign up is there.